A very good day to our grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's mathematical literacy lesson. My name is Mampani Kekana, and remember that this lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with the Sabono Discovery Center. Now, boys and girls, in today's lesson, our topic is data handling, and then we are going to focus on representing, interpreting, and analyzing data. So basically today, our focus is going to be on the graphs of data handling. So in today's lesson objective, we're going to look at the following. So in today's lesson, we're going to look at the concept of representing data. How do we represent data in the form of graphs? And then how do we interpret the very same data from graphs? And then how do we analyze the data from the graphs or from tables? Remember that in data handling, we've got different types of graphs. We've got pie chart, and then of which, with regard to a pie chart, you are not expected to draw a pie chart, but you are expected to be given a pie chart, and then they ask you questions based on a pie chart. And then line graph and broken line graph. Line graph and broken line graph. With regard to line graph and broken line graph, you should be able to do both of them. You should be able to draw. Okay, so that is where they're gonna give you information, and they use the same information to draw graphs, or they might give you the graphs and they ask you questions based on those graphs. And then we've got single bar graphs. So in general, you must know about bar graphs. Now, with regard to bar graphs, it's two-way. It's either they can give you a bar graph and they ask you questions based on the bar graph, or they can give you data and then they give you, or you have to use that data to draw the bar graphs. Of course, with regard to bar graph, we also have multiple or compound bar graph. That is just different types of bar graphs. And then we've got histogram. With histogram, again, is two ways. You must be able to draw and also be able to interpret. Stack graphs, you must be able to interpret. Generally with the stack graphs, you must be able to interpret, but they can also ask you to draw. Scatter plot, with regard to scatter plot, you must be able to interpret the information that is on the scatter plot, or in some cases, they might ask you to plot points of a scatter plot. And then, of course, box and whisker diagram or box and whisker plot. With regard to box and whisker plot, you would not be expected to draw the graph, but you would be expected to answer the questions based on the based on box and whisker plot. Okay, now what do you need to know? We know that you did this in grade 10 and 11, but just to refresh your memory, what do you need to know? Just know that each type of representations offer a different picture of data, and then certain types of representations are more appropriate for particular types of data. So in other words, when you represent data or when data is represented, we cannot just use any type of graph. For certain data, there's a specific type of graph that must be used. There's a specific type of graph that must be used. Know that the scale of set of axes and the point at which the axis cross can have an impression created by a graph. Now, with regard to drawing a graph, again, remember the bigger the scale you use, okay, the bigger the graph will be, okay? So the smaller the scale, the smaller the graph will be. So with regard to drawing, when you choose the scale or the size of the scale is very, very important. But luckily in MathsLead, when you have to draw a graph, you won't necessarily have to come up with your own scale. But what will happen is they're going to provide you with a grid paper, okay? A grid paper for you to draw the graph. And then you must also be able to read information from graphs and if necessary, use estimation to determine values. In some cases, when a grade is given and then you try to read the information from the graphs, you might find that the value it's not exactly, it is not exact, it's not an accurate value. In some cases, you just need to estimate because you cannot actually tell exactly how much is that, but you can estimate. And then you must also be able to read and identify values in graphs directly from the value provided on the axis without the need for estimation. Like I said, in some cases, you don't even have to estimate because you'll find that the values are exactly as they are. In other words, when you go to the graph and read the information or you are looking for a certain value, you can tell right away what amount is this. But in some cases, you have to estimate because it's not easy to tell how much that value is. Okay, now boys and girls, in today's lesson, our approach is going to be slightly different. Okay, because we want to know what you know in terms of today's lesson. We want to know what you know. So in other words, we're going to look at the baseline assessment. The baseline assessment is we want to check with you if you still remember some of the concepts that we did in grade 10 and also in grade 11. So in this slide, you will see there's a baseline assessment. Now in this baseline assessment, it's you have to match column A and column B. In other words, what is happening here is you've got column A, you've got bar graph, so you need to match the bar graph with its own definition on the or under column B. So you go to column A, number one is bar graph, number two is histogram. For all these concepts, you need to match their definitions or their explanations under column B. If number one, if bar graph matches with E, then you'll say 1E. Okay, so now boys and girls, what is going to happen now is we're going to give you about 4 to 5 minutes. Okay, 4 to 5 minutes. I'm going to disappear on the screen. You will only see the baseline. So in 4 to 5 minutes, we want you to quickly work out the answers of the baseline assessment. See you in 4 minutes time. All right, welcome back, boys and girls. I hope you have done your answers and you are ready for the solutions. I know that some of you have already done this with your educators, maybe in the last week or in the past 2 weeks. But now let's see how sharp your memory is in terms of the definitions. Remember, with regard to definitions, the examiner might also ask you to write down the definition, or the examiner might give you the whole definition and then they ask you to find the word for it. So let us look at our solutions. Now, the first one is you only had to match, you only had to indicate that one goes with F. Okay, one goes with F. It means a bar graph. It's a graph represented in the form of bars representing discrete data. And then two, you should have indicated B, letter B next to number 2, histogram, which matches with letter B, which is graph represented in the form of bars representing continuous data. Remember, you can see now there's a slight difference between bar graph and histogram. And then, of course, the third one is pie chart. So number 3, you were supposed to indicate letter A next to it. So number 3 matches with capital letter A, of which a pie chart is. It is a circular graphical representation of relative D portions of data in the form of slices. Okay, and then number 4, you were supposed to write letter E next to it, which is the definition of line graph. Now, the line graph, what is a line graph? It is a type of graph that displays data in the form of coordinates or in the form of points joined by line segments. And then, of course, number 5, box and whisker, you were supposed to write to indicate letter D next to number 5, which is the definition or the explanation of box and whisker. It is a graphical representation of the minimum value, quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3, and maximum value. So number 5 goes with capital letter D. And then, of course, number 6, which is a scatter plot. A scatter plot goes with capital letter C. So the definition for scatter plot is it is the type of graph that shows the relationship between two sets of data. So you should have indicated 1 goes with F, 2 goes with B, 3 goes with A, 4 goes with E, 5 with D, and 6 with C. So boys and girls, if you got 6 out of 6, so it means you know your definition or concept very well, which is what we need in MathsLead as well. You need to know how to define the concept, or you also need to know that if the concept is given in the form of explanation or the explanation is given, you can be able to give one word for it. So that is that. So that is what we wanted to check if you know all these things before we continue with our lesson. So again, as I indicated with regard to terminologies, you need to understand the terminologies that are given, okay, or the concepts that are given. Every concept, every terminology that we're working with, you must be able to understand what it means. We said today we're going to do representing. What do we mean by representing? Okay, representing in simple terms, we know that in this case we're going to focus on graphs in data handling. Representing means depict, so that means put it in the form of a picture, a particular subject in a work of art. Okay, put a certain picture in a form of art. And then we also said we are going to do analyzing. What do we mean by analyzing? When we analyze is when we examine something carefully and in detail to understand its components. Okay, so when we analyze is when we scrutinize or we examine, we look into the information. We look into the information carefully so that we can understand what the information is about. What do we mean when we say interpret? Interpreting data. Explain the meaning of the information. What does this information mean to you? So when you interpret, you'll be explaining the meaning of the information. And then the most common word that the examiner would use is trend, especially with regard to the graphs. Trend. What do we mean by a trend? It's a general direction in which something is developing or changing, a general direction. In simple terms, we might say the number it's increasing, or the number is decreasing, or the number is stable. Like for instance, in your school, we might say with regard to the number of learners in the school, what is happening to the number of learners every year? Is the number increasing, or is the number decreasing, or the number is stable? So with regard to trend, it's either it's increasing or is decreasing, or it can be stable, or the number, let's say for in 2025 the number increased, but maybe in 2026 the number would decrease, and then in the following year you'll find that the number in 2026 and 2027 is the same, so therefore we'll say the number is stable. And then when we say estimate, we mean give an approximate value, or approximate calculation. So these are some of the words that are used in data handling, and you need to understand what we mean by these words. So when we say representing, what do we mean by representing? When we say analyzing, what do we mean by analyzing? When we say interpreting, what do we mean? When we say explain the trend, what do we mean by the word trend? When we say estimate, what do we mean by the word estimate? Okay, now when I introduced the lesson, I spoke about different types of graphs. Okay, and then the other thing that we have done is we looked at the names of the graphs and also their explanations in words. Okay, so you just have a picture of a graph, but you explain it in words. Okay, but in this case, we're going to look at the definitions or the explanations as well as the pictures. Okay, we spoke about pie chart, and then we said pie chart, it is a circular graphical representation of relative portions of data in the form of slices. Okay, that is how simple you can explain pie chart. Or if you've got your own way of explaining it and it's easier, that will also be acceptable. So to represent the data in a pie chart, each slice is represented as a portion of 360 degrees. So each portion is part of 360 degrees. It might be like this one, it might be 140 degrees and so on and so on. But you can see that these sectors are not equal. Hence, the percentages that are indicated there are also not equal. But the other thing that is important here is the total percentages, or the total degrees must be 360 degrees, and the total percentages must give us 100%. If one portion is unknown, then the unknown portion should be subtracted from 100%. Let's say in this case, we've got 26.7%, we've got 16.8, but you can see, let's say for instance, this one is not given. Let's say this one was not given. If this one was not given, what we're going to do, we're going to say 100 minus, or 100% minus the given percentages. So pie chart, but with pie chart, you don't have to know how to draw a pie chart, but you only need to know how to read the information or interpret the information from the graph. And then of course we've got bar graph. Okay, a bar graph, it is a graph representing discrete data. I'm sure you know what a discrete data is. The discrete data is an information that is collected by counting, which is categorized and presented by bars, which space. So discrete data, I'm just emphasizing, is the quantitative. Quantitative, it means you want a quantity. Quantity means you want to know the number. How many are they that can be counted? It represents dependent and independent variables. We all know about independent, okay, on the horizontal line, and then dependent on the vertical line. However, with regard to bar graph, we also have different types of bar graphs. Okay, we've got a single bar graph. This one is a single bar graph. this is a double bar graph or a compound bar graph, just because there's two of them. So if it's two, we can say double, but if it's more than two, then we can say a triple bar graph. If it's four, we can say compound. But once it's more than one, we can either say it's a double bar graph, or it's a dual bar graph, or it's a multiple bar graph. And then we've got this other type of a bar graph. This one is a horizontal bar graph, because the bars are now moving in a different direction. That is why we say it's a horizontal bar graph. And then we've got a stacked bar graph. Stacked, it means they are stacked, they are on top of each other. In this case, we've got a bar there, but this bar has got different bars. As you can see that in this case, we've got different colors. The bars are on top of each other. They are stacked. Hence, we say it's a stacked bar graph. So with bar graph is one of the graphs that we must learn in data handling. But under bar graph, we also get different types of bar graphs. And then of course histogram. This is how histogram looks like, and most of learners are confusing histogram with bar graph. Most learners are confusing histogram with bar graph, but remember, with histogram, it is a graphical representation of continuous data. Continuous data. I hope you also understand the meaning of the word continuous. In this case, it means it's the information that must be collected by measuring. Remember, discrete is counting, and then continuous, we have to measure to collect that information. If I have to find the height of each and every learner in the classroom, I will measure the height of each and every learner. In other words, I will be measuring. So in that case, it is possible that I will get positive numbers. I mean, not positive numbers, but whole numbers and decimal numbers. But in terms of counting, if I have to move from one class to another, and then I have to count the number of learners, or I have to count the number of chairs, or I have to count the number of tables, there's no way that I will get a decimal number. I'll always get a whole number. So please be sure about discrete. Discrete is an information that is collected by counting, while measuring is an information that is collected by, discrete is an information that is collected by counting, and then continuous is an information that is collected by measuring. Okay, but now what is very, very important with this one, remember that with histogram, there are no spaces between the bars. No spaces. Okay, there's no spaces between the bars. So you must remember. That's why here we say there are no gaps between the bars. There are no gaps between the bars. And this one is also very important. They say if the frequency, okay, the frequency is 0. In other words, if the number in this case, they say total distance, okay, how many times does a certain distance appear? If it's 0, then you won't see the bar there. If it's 0, then you won't see the bar there, because it will be drawn on the line. Okay, and then of course line graph. The definition, it is the type of graph that displays data in the form of coordinates. Coordinates simply means points joined by a line segment. Okay, it compares two variables plotting along axis, independent variable that is not affected by other factors. Dependent, of course, we've got this one, the number of years, which is an independent, and then the income, which is a dependent. So the income, it's a dependent because it depends on the number of years, but the number of years does not depend on the income. And then of course, the new one in grade 12, box and whisker. Okay, I know you know the picture, but you must also be able to explain it using your own words. Okay, in simple terms, they say it is a graphical representation of quartiles, minimum and maximum values. Then the graph has 4 segments. The graph has got 4 parts. Segment simply means parts or quarters. Each segment has 25%. In other words, we've got this part, we've got this part, we've got this part, we've got this part. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And then they say each from minimum to quartile 1 is 25%. And from quartile 1 to median, it's 25%. And from median to quartile 3 is 25%. From quartile 3 to maximum, it's another 25%. That is what they mean by each segment, each part of box and whisker is 25% of data. If the segment is bigger, it implies that the data is spread apart. So if the segment is bigger, it means there's a spread of data there. If it's small, it means it implies that the values are close to each other. It's like, for instance, if learners have to write a test in the classroom, okay, if learners are going to get more or less the same, or the marks that are close to each other, let's say learners will get 30, 40, 50, and so on. But in some cases, we find that there's a learner who got 40, and there's a learner who got 60, there's a learner who got 90, and so on. You find that the marks are apart from each other. Then it means the parts or the segments will also be bigger. Okay, then the scatter plot. Okay, now with scatter plot, it is the type of graph that shows a relationship between two sets of data. Okay, so in this case, we've got a positive correlation. Now, what do we mean by a positive correlation? A positive correlation is almost the same as direct proportion. Like, for instance, if someone has to sell ice blocks or ice cubes, okay, the sales will move faster if the temperatures are high. So when the temperature increases, when it's getting hotter, the number of ice cubes to be sold will also increase. So if the temperature increases, the number of ice blocks to be sold will also increase. That is what we mean by a direct proportion, or what we mean by a positive correlation. In terms of scatter plot, we'll say that is a positive correlation. These things, they go hand in hand. Okay, then for this one, it's negative correlation. Okay, now the negative correlation can be, for instance, let's say you like watching TV, you spend most of your time watching TV. What is going to happen with your marks? Okay, if you spend most of your time at home watching TV, so we say you spend much of your time watching TV, and then your marks are going to drop. So it means when you increase one quantity, in this case, if you increase your time of watching TV, your marks are going to drop because you are not going to spend your time studying, right? So that is a negative correlation. So a negative correlation is when quantity increases, the other one will decrease. And then the third one is no correlation. We can't say this is happening because of 1, 2, 3. If this was not supposed to happen, this is what was going to happen. So in this case, let's say, for instance, the shoe size, okay, a learner shoe size against his or her performance. We might not necessarily say a learner who wears a smaller sizes of shoes would automatically do good in the subject, or we can say learners who are wearing bigger sizes would actually perform good in a certain subject. We cannot relate the two. So that is one example of no correlation. No correlation, it means we can't say this is happening, then automatically this is what is going to happen, because that is not always the case. It is not always the case that a learner who wears bigger sizes will perform good in a certain subject, or will perform bad in a certain subject. So that is what the correlation is about. Then remember, the scatter plot is only about plotting. Okay, so you can see that the points are actually all over the place, but even if they are all over the place, they are actually sort of giving you a certain direction. You can see that in this case, the first one of positive correlation, even though they are scattered, they are all over the place, but they can actually give you a picture of a certain direction. And then while with the negative correlation, you can see that even though they are scattered, they are all over the place, but they can give you a picture that indicates that they are decreasing. While with this one, even though they are scattered, but they can't give you a certain direction. They can't indicate in which direction they are moving because we say there's no correlation. Right. Then that was just the introduction of the data handling, representing data with regard to the graphs. Okay, then now we are going to look at the possible questions, the questions from previous question paper. How do they ask the questions based on this type of graphs? Now you can see that this is activity number 1 and it is taken from Northern Cape, September 2024. Okay, this was a prelim examination. Now you just have to imagine yourself, if you were writing this Northern Cape question paper, would you be able to answer this question? Okay, then it's the total population of South Africa on the 8th of April 2024 was, this number is 60,880,156, of which 26,056,706 were social media users by age group and gender. Use the graph to answer the questions that follow. 1.1. Write down the total number of social media users in South Africa on the 8th of April 2024 in words. Okay, now boys and girls, it means you need to know how to write any given number in words. It doesn't matter how small or how big that value is. That is one of the things that you need to know in the examination. And then boys and girls, you cannot afford to lose marks on these type of questions because these are the easiest questions. Now, what will be our answer in this case? They say write down the total number of social media users in South Africa on 8 April 2024 in words. Now, just make sure that you choose the correct one. This is the number that we have to write in words, the one about social media. Okay, so we write 26 million, everything in words. 26 million and 56,000 56,000 700 and 6. Okay, it's 26 million 56,706, or you can say 26 million and 56,706. Okay, this is how easy the answer must be. So then you get your 2 marks. So very important, everything must be in weight. Everything must be in weight. Once you indicate a number there, then everything will be wrong. Okay, then this one is the next one. 1.2 is still on the very same information. The total population of South Africa on the 8th of April 2024 was 60,880,156, of which 26,056,706 were social media users by age group and gender. Use the graph to answer the questions that follow, and this is 1.2. They say identify the age group in which percentage male social media users outnumber the female users. Okay, identify the age group in which the percentage male social media users outnumber. It means it's more or it's bigger than the female users. If you look at our graph, you can see that from the age of 13 to 17, female is 4.5% and male is 4.1%. So it means the female is bigger than male. The female outnumbers the number of the male. Then we've got 18 to 24, 13.4, and we've got 13.6. So it means that age. Okay, let's check. 18 to 24, the males, okay, the male outnumbers the female. the number or the percentage of males outnumbers the percentage of females. So we can say 18 to 24, 18 to 24 years. So that is by just reading from the graph. But now let's go and check if we don't have more, because that is one is important. Maybe we might end up here, but the examiner is actually looking for more than one answer. So we need to check, or the examiner is looking for more than 3 answers. The next one, we've got 14.4, 15.2, female is bigger than male. We've got 9.0, 9.0, they are equal. We've got 3.8, in this case 3.6, the female is bigger than male. Then we've got 2.2, the female is still bigger than male. And then we've got 3.0, the female there, it's bigger than the male. So it means 18 to 24 years is the only answer. There's no any other age group where the male outnumber the female users. Okay, then still on the very same question, I'm not going to read the given information again. I'm just going to go straight to the question. They say, calculate the total percentage of participants age 45 years and older. Calculate the total percentage of participants. Okay, now for 45 years and older, 45 years and older will be from this. Okay, so total percentage of participants. So in this case, it doesn't matter whether it's female and males, but it means it's all of them together. What percentage do they form? Then we all know that you need to add. So what we're going to do for 45 to 54, we've got 3.8% plus, and then for female is 3.6%, and then we now go to 55 to 64. Then we say plus 2.2% plus 1.6%, and then we've got plus for 65 and above, 65 plus, we've got 3.0% plus 2.6%. The order does not matter there. It doesn't matter how you add those percentages. You can add, you can say 3.8 plus 2.2 plus 3, and then after that you say 3.6 plus 1.6 plus 2.6, then you get the answer. But what is important here is you must show your addition. Very important that you need to show your addition, boys and girls. Then you can simply take your calculator, 3.8 plus 3.6 plus 2.2 plus 1.6 plus 3.0 plus 2.6. So I'm getting 16.6. So 16.6, that is for 45 years and older. So you just have to add the percentages from 45 years and upwards. That was number 1.3. Okay, and then for 1.4, it's determine the difference in percentage between the largest percentage males and the smallest percentage males. Determine the difference in percentage between the largest percentage males and the smallest percentage males. It sounds like it's a range, okay? But in this case, we just read the question as it is. The difference between this and this one. The largest percentage males, if you go to the males, you will see that the largest percentage here is, I see we've got 14.4. That is the largest one. So the difference will be 14.4%. The difference means you subtract. The difference means you take the big value, you subtract the small value. Or the difference is just simply means you subtract, okay? So in this case, they say the difference between the largest. So the largest is 14.4, and then when I check here, the smallest is 1.6. So it's 1.6%, then 14.4 minus 1.6, then it's 12.6%. Okay, now boys and girls, okay, I hope you can see how easy these questions are. They are very, 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 very easy. And then it simply means these are the type of questions where you're supposed to score the marks, where you're supposed to get everything correct. They are very easy. Yes, that is how Mathlead is. You will always get those easy questions. And in most cases, those learners who can get these easy marks, they tend to not to do good in the subject. But those who are doing good in the easy questions, they might struggle with the other challenging questions, but at the end of the day, they do pass. Okay, this is activity number 2. You see, this was taken from Mpumalanga. It was June 2023. And then the information that is given here is in 2022, Mandla studied the population distribution percentage according to age groups. The pie chart alongside shows the distribution percentage of the South African population according to the age group. The pie chart and the accompanying bar of the pie chart above indicates the age group and the percentage of people in that age group in South Africa in 2022. Use the pie chart and the information alongside to answer the questions that follow. There you've got a picture which is given. The question 2.1 says determine the value of P. Here it's the value of P, which is one sector of the pie chart. So you can see that this for this sector, the percentage is given. This sector, the percentage is given. For this sector, the percentage is given. But this sector, the percentage is not given. So what do we do to get this? But we can see that this one, they say from this sector, there is the information. So the information, it's the stack bar graph. Remember, we spoke about the stack bar graph where the bars are on top of each other. So in this case, you can see that they have indicated that this bar is 6.8% and this one is 6.6%. But both of them, they make that sector. They make that part of a pie chart. So what we do, we just say the value of P is 6.8% plus 6.6%. So 6.8, then we say 6.8 plus 6.6, and then we get 13.4%. 13.4%. That is the answer. Okay. For some might say, okay, in order to find the value of P, I can say 100% subtract all the values of all those other parts. Then it's supposed to give you the same answer as well. Okay, then number 2.2, still on the very same one, same information. Okay, but I'm going to read the information because this information was not indicated in the previous slide. They say in 2022, the growth rate of South African population was 0.933% from 2021. Determine the population of South Africa in 2021 if the population was 60.6 million in 2022. This is a percentage increase. Boys and girls, you should know how to calculate percentage increase or percentage decrease, or you should be able to use the formula when the information is given. Okay. Unfortunately, in this case, we don't calculate the percentage increase, but the percentage increase is given. If you look at this information from the formula, if you look at this formula, we need to know, are we calculating this? No, this one is given. Do we have population in 2022? They say determine the population of South Africa in 2021. Okay, so the population in 2022 was given it's actually given, which is 60.6 million. And then the population in 2021 is the one that we need to calculate. And then do we know the population in 2021? We don't know the population in 2021, so we need to calculate it. Okay, very important. The first thing is you need to know how to substitute which one is which. If I go to the formula, I'll say, right, percentage is 0.933. 0.933%. Then I say this is equals to, do I know the population in 2022? The population in 2022 is 60.6 million. Okay, and then I say minus. I don't know the population in 2021, so let me just leave this one as P. P for population in 2021. Then I say over. Do I know the population in 2021? No, I don't know it. So I can just leave it as P. P to represent population in 2021. Then all this multiplied by 100%. Okay, then all this multiplied by 100%. So, and then from this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify this. Okay, remember this is actually now one thing. Okay, so if I take 0.933, I divide it by 100%. So I'm going to divide both sides by 100%. Divide both sides by 100%. Okay, that one and that one will disappear. If I take 0.933, I divide it by 100, it's going to give me, okay, for the sake of the space, I'm going to move a little bit to my left hand side. If you take your calculator here, you say 0.933, you divide it by 100, then you should get 0.00933, and then now I've got, what do I have on the right hand side? I still have 60.6 million minus P over P. Okay, we have to find the value of P. Then from there I cross multiply. If I cross multiply, this is the same as over 1. If I take P, I multiply by that, I'll get 0.00933 P. It's equals to 60.6 million, okay, minus P. Okay, there I've got 0.0933 P equals to 60.6 million minus P. So I have to take that P to the right hand side. If I take it to the right hand side, I get 0.00933 P plus P. The P is now on the left hand side, then 60.6 million. Okay, if I add these two, 0.0933 plus 1 is going to give me 1. I'm going to write it here, 1.00933 P equals to 60.6 million. I'm sorry about the mess there. 1.00933 P equals to, now I have to find the value of P, so I divide by 1.0933 P. No, I only divide by 1.0933. Divide by 1.00933. The reason why I'm dividing by 1.00933 is because I want to remove this so that I can be left with P. Then from there, I'm going to say P equals to, on the right hand side, I'm going to say 60.6 divided by 60.6 divided by 1.00933. And then this will give me 60.03. It's actually 60.039. So I can estimate it to be 60.04 if I round it up to 2 decimal places. But if I round it up to 1 decimal place, it's just 60.0. If I round it up to the nearest whole number, it's 60 million. So this will be 60 million in the end. 60 million will be the correct answer. It means the population in 2021 was about 60 million, and then in 2022 the population was 60.6 million. Okay, so it's a bit challenging one because it involves a lot of steps. Okay, it actually involves a couple of steps before you can get to the correct answer. And these are some of those challenging questions that you need to familiarize yourself with. That is why I said in most cases you'll get some easy questions, and that is where you cannot afford to lose the marks. But in some cases you'll get those challenging questions, and that is where you must also familiarize yourself with such type of questions. Okay, that was number 2.2. And then the next activity is activity 3. This one was taken from Northern Cape, again September 2024. The information that is given here is globally, South Africa is the 9th largest producer and the 5th largest exporter of table grapes. The table alongside shows the regional production of table grapes in hectares per region in South Africa from 2018 to 2023. Use the table alongside to answer the questions that follow. Then 3.1 says calculate A, which is the total hectare table grapes produced in the Olifants River regions in 2020. Where's A? This is A. We're looking for the value of this A. Okay. Now to get A, we can actually use the grand total. We know that if we add all this, they must give us 21,100. So how can we find the value of A? So we can say A equals to, then we say 21,100. Okay, and then we minus all those other given values. So we can start with the most top one. So we can say 2,522. Then we subtract 5,857. Then we subtract 4,934. We subtract 6,563. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 values. There's actually 5, but we don't know what the value of A is. But we know that if we have to add the 5 of them, they must give us 21,100. So the easiest one is to take 21,100 and we subtract the other 4. And this is why you need to take your calculator. 21,100 minus 2,522 minus 5,857 minus 4,934 minus 6,563. Okay, so then my answer is 1,224. So that is the value of A. However way that you can do it, some learners might start by adding the given values, and then after adding, they take 21,000 and they subtract the added values. Doesn't matter how you get to the answer, but what matters is as long as the answer is correct at the end of the day. Then 3.2, I'm not going to read the information again, straight to the question. Identify the regions with an increase in production of table grapes from 2022 to 2023. Now we're going to check which region. Remember, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 regions. Now we want to check which one had an increase in production of table grapes from 2022 to 2023. Right. If we start with northern provinces, the number changed from 2,358 to 2,051. It's a decrease. The number became smaller in 2023. If we go to Orange River, the number changed from 5,768 to 5,778. Can you see that it has increased? So we can say Orange River is our first answer. Orange River. Can we end there? Let's see if there's no, we don't have more of these regions. Okay. Then if we check Olifants River, 1,184 to 1,145, it's a decline. Berg River 4,674 to 4,774, that is an increase. So we can also say the Berg River region. Okay, then we go to Hex River, 6,394 to 6,240, it's a decline. So we've got only two regions, and that is exactly what the examiner was looking for: Orange River and Berg River. So don't just, in some cases, don't just assume that I got the final answer. You must also check with the rest of the other regions. Okay, the next question, 3.3, still based on the same information. They say state one type of graph that can be used to represent the data in the table. State one type of graph that can be used to represent the data in the table. This information, what other type of graph do you think we can use? Okay, when I look at this, because now you have to compare, you can actually use, the bar graph, compound bar graph. But someone else can say, what about line graph? I can also use line graph. You can also use a pie chart. Okay, so if you look at this information, the compound bar graph, that is where you're going to say 2018, and then you compare Northern Province, Orange River, always. So it means it's going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for compound bar graph. Or one can say line graph, and then you indicate the information for 2018, for 2019, 2020, and so on for each province or for each region. That will be the line graph. Or you convert everything to percentages, and then you indicate that on the pie chart. So when they say state one type, but there's actually more than one, so you only have to indicate one. Then still on the very same information, they say use the table alongside to answer the questions that follow. Describe the trend. The word trend, very, very important in data handling. Remember, we explained at the beginning, or we spoke about this at the beginning of the lesson, that trend might mean it is increasing, it is decreasing, or it is stable. Okay, or it can be all of them. We can start by increasing and then decrease, and it becomes stable. Any order does not matter there. It can start by being stable, or start by being the same, and then it increases, and then it decreases. But what matters in this case is when you speak about trend, if not all these words, one of them, two of them, or all of them might or can be used to describe the trend. They say describe the trend in the total production of table grapes in South Africa from 2018 to 2023. In South Africa, it means we are now going to focus on the total, but from 2018. We can look at this one. From 2018 to 2019. So you can say 2018 to 2019. What happened there? It was an increase. Okay, and then from 2019 to 2020, 2019 to 2020, it was a decrease. And then from 2020 to 2021, let's check. From 2020 to 2021, it was an increase. 2020 to 2021, it was an increase. And then from 2021, 2021 to 2022, 2021 to 2022, it was a decrease or a decline. And then from there, we've got from 2022 to 2023, 2022 to 2023, it was a decrease. Okay, so yeah, so in general, you can just explain it: increase, decrease, increase, decrease, but you have to specify what is happening, because it's not just an increase. One can say from 2018, let's say, to 2021, it was an increase. Okay, so maybe you just keep 1 year, but you see indicate that from this year to that year, ignoring the year in the middle, it was generally increased. But I think this is the best way to explain it, where you just indicate that from this year to the next year, this is what happened, and from this year to the other year, this is what happened. So in this case, we've got only increase and decrease. We don't have stable. We don't have 2 consecutive years where we can say from this year to this year the number did not change or the number was stable. It was just an increase and decrease. But what is important here is when the examiner asks you to describe the trend, you must know that the examiner means you must explain what is happening from 1 year to the other, or what is happening from one position to another position. Okay, and then activity number 4, this one is taken from KZN June 2024. The information is tourism has always contributed a lot to the economy of South Africa. At the end of 2023, the total contribution was 268 billion, which was 4.3% of the total economy. The graph alongside shows the percentage distribution of tourists by region of residence and gender for January 2024. Use the graph alongside to answer the questions that follow. 4.1. If you had never seen this graph before, you would not be able to answer it. But luckily, at the beginning of the lesson, that is where we explain, or I explain different types of graph. Name the type of graph shown above, or name the type of graph shown alongside. Remember, we said this is a stacked bar graph. If you just say, sorry, it must be stacked bar graph. If you just say bar graph only, it's not enough because this is a specific type of a bar graph. So the examiner would expect you to know that yes, it's a bar graph, but it's a specific type of a bar graph. So you need to mention. So if you just say bar graph, the examiner might give you 1 mark. But if you say stacked bar graph, it means you know that yes, we've got bar graphs, but we've got different types of bar graphs. Therefore, this one is a specific type of a bar graph, which is a stacked bar graph. Then you get your full 2 marks. Right, still on the very same graph, I'll go straight to the question. They say, write down the gender that contributed the majority of tourists for all 3 regions. Okay, right. Write down the gender that contributed majority of tourists for all 3 regions. So for all of them, the gender is actually male. So we've got overseas, we've got SADC, we've got other African countries. But for all the regions, it means this is actually the summary of the other 3 paragraphs. So in this case, it's 854,882 for male, 416,954. Sorry, I'm not. I think it might not be that clear, but it's 416,000. But basically, you can see that the male is bigger than the female. So in this case, the answer is male. Male tourist. Okay, and then still on the very same one, the estimated 2023 population for SADC region was 389.4 million people. Calculate the percentage of both male and female tourists in the SADC region who visited South Africa. Calculate the percentage. Okay, now obviously before you can calculate the percentage, you need to know the number of people. If I want to know the percentage of boys in your classroom, what I will do is I'll have to take the number of boys and I divide it by the total number of learners. Okay, if I need to know the percentage of learners who are not using the scholar transport, okay, that organized transport that is transporting you to schools, it means I'm going to add those who are using private cars, okay, those who are walking to school and so on. So I'm going to add them together and divide by the total number of learners. So in this case, they say calculate the percentage of both male and female tourists in the SADC region. Now the SADC region is this one. For the male, The male there is 445,330. Okay, and then the female, we've got 319,372. So the total of male, so I will say total for male and female. Total for male and female tourists is 445,330 plus 319,372. Then I get the total. The total there, if you take your calculator, let's see, 445,330, 445,330, and let's say plus 319,372. This gives me a total of 764,702. But now, how do I calculate the percentage? For the percentage, I'll now say 764,702. Then I divide it by 389,4. Okay, so the 389.4 million. Okay, now we need to divide. Now here they are trying to catch you out. 776,702, we've got 389,4. But before we can divide, we need to write this as an ordinary number. If I've got 389,4, okay, and then it's million, and then I want to write it as an ordinary number without the word million, what am I going to do? I have to take this and multiply it by 1 million. I have to take this value 389,4 and then I multiply it by 1 million. So it means it's the same as 389,400,000. Okay, if you multiply it. So therefore, when I do the division here, I'm going to say 764,702 divided by 389,400,000. 76,702, which is 76,702 over 389,400,000 times 100%. Can you see that I'm talking big numbers here, boys and girls? So it means you must also be able to read and also be able to write these big numbers as ordinary numbers. So 76,702 divided by 387,400,000. Just have to check that I've got everything. 387,400,000, and then I must multiply it by 100. So I'm getting 0,019799 percentage. If you round it up to 2 decimal places, it will just be 0,02. Okay, but the examiner doesn't specify rounding. Just make sure that when you round off correctly. But I think in this case, the examiner will be more interested in the answer. It doesn't matter how many decimal places. So that is the answer for 4.3. Right, activity 5. This was taken from IEB May 2024. The following graphs, or the graph alongside, shows the monthly percentage of domestic and foreign tourists visiting the Drakensberg Mountains for a year. Use the information on the graph to answer the questions that follow. Identify the month with the highest percentage of domestic tourists. Write down the month and the percentage. So this is a broken line graph. Okay, so these are the questions from a broken line graph. And then we have to answer this. Identify the month with the highest percentage of domestic tourists. So this one likely is given in color. So you can see that the color blue is for domestic and the color orange is for foreign tourists. So it means for 5.1, I have to go and look at the domestic tourists and write down the month and the percent. Identify the month with the highest percentage. Which percentage is the biggest here? On the blue one. So if I look at this, I can see that here is my percentage. I think that is the highest one. So it's 11%. So it's 11%. And this is in the month of April. So if the examiner had to give 2 marks here, the examiner would give 1 mark for 11%, 1 mark for April. It means if you only write the percentage, you'll get only 1 mark. And then if you only write the month, you get 1 mark. But if you write both of them, you get 2 marks. And then for 5.2 is give the month that had the lowest percentage for foreign tourists. Foreign tourist, it's the orange one, the lowest. It means in this case, I can see that I've got 3 point, I've got 2 points that look like they are on the same level. But if you look at the values, this one is 3.75 and that one is 3.70. So 3.70 it's actually below 3.75. So the month that had the lowest, it is the month of June. So this one they are looking for only, okay, it's June, but they are also looking for the percentage similar to the previous one. So the percentage there is 3.7%. Or that does not matter. Okay, we can say 3.70% as indicated. So that's how easy it is. Calculate the total of all the percentage for the domestic tourist. So the total for the domestic tariff, so it means we must take all the blue percentages. So I've got, if you look on the graph, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That is for 12 months. When they say calculate the total percentage of all percentages for the domestic tourist, so it means we only need to take those percentages and add them together. There's 12 of them. So if I go and look at the first one, I've got 10%. And then it's plus. The second one is 7.75. 7.75%. And then the next one is 10.25. 10.25%. And then after 10.25, it's 11% plus 11%. After 11% is 7%. And then after 7% is 6.75. After 6.75 is 7.50. And then after 7.50 is 6.75. And then after 6.75, I've got 8%. After 8%, I've got 8.25%. After 8.25, I've got 7.75%. After 7.75, I've got 8.75%. I hope they are also clear. So from this one, after writing them down and indicating the addition, I just have to check, because when I look at the graph, they're supposed to be 12. So I also need to check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Indeed, they are 12. So it's just a matter of taking your calculator and add them up. So if I say 10 plus 7.75 plus 10.25 plus 11 plus 7 plus 6.75 plus 7.50 plus 6.75 plus 8 plus 8,25 plus 7,75 and plus 8,75. And then I hope I've added everything. I'm getting 99.75%. So that will be the total. Okay. So that is the answer. But now, boys and girls, I've just realized that because it is not that clear on the graph, I think for the previous answer, if you go back to number 5.2, okay, yeah, I was correct. June to okay, yeah, no, it's correct. It was correct. 3.70. I thought maybe I indicated a different value. Right. So that is the answer for number 5.3. And then number 5.4, they say determine the missing November percentage for foreign tourists. Foreign tourists is the orange one. But if we go to November for the orange one, okay, all the percentages on the orange, all the percentages on the orange coordinates or on the orange points are indicated except for November. Okay, except for November. So in this case, how do we get that one for November? So this one, we just need to add. So, or we can say 100% subtract all those other percentages. Remember, boys and girls, we just answered the question as is. So from the orange one, the first one is minus 10%. And then the next orange is, I think it's 15,85. And then the next one is 11.8. Okay. And then after 11.8, I've got 8.5. So minus 8.5%. After 8.5, I subtract the 3,75. After 3,75 minus 3,70%. And then after minusing 3,70, I have to sum to minus 4,25. After minusing 4,25, I have to minus 7,15. And then after minusing 7,15, I have to sum minus 5. After minusing 5, I have to minus 11. And then after minusing 11, I have to minus 8,75. So basically, in this case, I have to subtract 9 percentages. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I've got more. So it means, let me check. It's actually because these ones are not indicated. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 12 points, but 1 point is missing. Sorry. So there's 12 points, but 1 point is missing. So I have to find that point. So that is why I have to subtract. So it's 10. I'm sorry, it's 100. 100 minus 10 minus 15.85 minus 11.8 minus 8.5 minus 3.75 minus 3.70 minus 4.25 minus 7.15 minus 5 minus 11 minus 8.75. So I'm getting 10.25 is the answer, 10.25%. Okay. I hope all the points that are indicated here are correct, but they are actually exactly as they are because I took them exactly from the graph. I might, because some of them are not that clear, but they look correct, 10.25%. Okay, then activity 6, taken from KZN June 2023. Boys and girls, every graph that you see here should not be a stranger to you. Okay, you should have covered this with your educators. So like this graph, it's AD Kiosk Management asked a group of mathematical literacy learners to draw graphs that will assist to determine if there's a relationship between daily temperatures and the sales of ice cream, burgers, coffee. The graphs are shown alongside. Use the graph and the information above to answer the questions that follow. Name the type of graph drawn alongside. Okay, we started with the different types of graphs. You should know this one. So this one is a scatter plot. Okay, easy, scatter plot. Right? And then for 6.2, match each graph with the correct type of relationship. You have to indicate which one shows no correlation. I did explain this at the beginning. Which one shows a positive correlation and which one shows a negative correlation. Write the letter and the type of correlation next to it. Okay, the letters here, we've got A, we've got B, we've got C. Now, scatter plot, you can see that the points are plotted there and then they are scattered. Okay, they are scattered, but if generally if you look at them, you can see that they are increasing. So it means in this case, when the temperature increases, okay, when the temperature increases, the number of sales of ice cream also increases. Okay, so this one is sales of ice cream also increases. So it means A, we can say it's a positive correlation. Positive correlation. Okay, positive correlation. Then B, when the temperature increases, you can see that the points are plotted there, but generally they are going down. Generally they are going down. So it means in this case, we can say it's a negative correlation. Negative correlation. As the temperature increases, the sales of burgers decreases. That is a negative correlation. And then C, there is no correlation. There's no correlation between temperature and sales of coffee. There's no correlation. That one we say C, no correlation. No correlation. So we have indicated where we're matching each graph. A, it's a positive. B, it's a negative. And then C, it's a no correlation. 6.3, they say, based on the graphs above, what advice would you give to the AD Kiosk management if the kiosk would like to stock the product that is not weather dependent? Okay, that is not weather dependent. When they say that is not weather dependent, it means whether it's hot or cold, people will still buy it. Okay, so in this case, we all know that for ice cream, most people will actually buy an ice cream when it's hot. Okay, and then with regard to burger, you can see that in this case it says when the temperature increases, the number of burgers. So when it's hot, people will not actually buy burgers. But there's one thing that people like, whether it's hot or cold. Okay, and then that is coffee. So in this case, is we can say they can sell coffee. They can sell coffee because it is not weather dependent. So that means whether it's hot or cold, people will still buy coffee. So coffee does not actually, even though most of us we think that when it's cold, people will buy. That is where the sales of coffee it's going fast. But actually, generally, we know that even if it's hot, people will still drink coffee. Okay, so activity 7. This one was taken from the National Senior Certificate. It was in June 2024. It's the table alongside shows the percentage achieved in term 1 by 10 selected learners of Woodhill SS for task 1 and task 2 in mathematical literacy. On the answer sheet provided, the performance of learners A to J for both tasks are plotted. So there we've got scatter plot and the points are plotted, and then the points are all over the place, but generally you can see that the points are actually increasing. Use the table and the graph to answer the questions that follow. Name the type of graph. You should know the type of graph now. It's a scatter plot. That is the answer for number 7.1. Right. And then for 7.2, it's identify the learner whose marks for both tasks can be classified as an outlier. So that way again, an outlier. What do we mean by an outlier, or what is an outlier? Okay. If I have to take the marks of all the learners in the classroom, and then I can see that the marks are more or less close to each other. Okay, let's say it was a very, very, very difficult test, or it was a very, very difficult investigation. And then all the learners got the marks in the 30s, in the 40s, in the 50s. But all of a sudden, there's this genius who just got 90 or got 95 or got 100. So it means that genius mark is far from the rest of the class. So that genius will actually be an outlier. Okay, and then I think a colleague of mine also gave an example with your ages, that all learners in your class are more or less in the same age, 18, 19, 20. But now if we have to compare your ages with your educator, who's now maybe in the 40s, we'll say the educator's age is an outlier. So an outlier is the value that is far big or far small compared to the other numbers. So this one is identify the learner whose mark book can be classified as an outlier. Give reason for your answer. So an outlier in this case will be learner number age, because if you compare task 1, 70, 60, 63, then all of a sudden that learner got 22. Task number 2, we got 50, 69, 53, 49, then all of a sudden that learner got 15. So we can say learner age, learner age is an outlier. Learner age is an outlier. And what will be your reason? Because for task 1 and task 2's marks are way lower than the rest of the learners. Okay, the marks of this learner are way lower than the rest of the learners. Okay, then activity 8 is use the answer sheet provided to plot the results of learner K and learner L. So remember, this is learner K and L. So for task 1, the learner got 68. So it must be 68. So here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 64, 68. So if I plot it, 68 and 40. So 68 and 40, I'm going to plot it somewhere there. Okay, I open cross. You just have to make sure that you get the correct positions there. And then for L, it's 88. 88 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, between 100 and 80, you get 20. So if you take 20, 20 divided by how many blocks are there between 80 and 100? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I divide it by 5, I get 4. So it means this is 84, this is 88, this is 92, this is 96, this is 100. So 84, 88, so 88 and 64. So on this side, it's 60 and 70. If I say 70 minus 60, the difference here is 10. Then 10 divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I divide 10 by 5, I get 2. So each block represents 2 there. I've got the first block will be 2, and then the second one will be 4. So it means I'm going to draw it somewhere there. This is 84, 88, somewhere there. So in this case, you must be able to interpret the intervals that are given there, the blocks that are given there, for you to be able to plot on the correct position. Okay, boys and girls, this will bring us to the end of our lesson. But before we finish, this is just something that you have to do for homework. Okay, this is just an additional question for the homework. So the homework is based on the similar graphs that we are doing. I think this will be shared with your educators, and then the educators will give it to you as well. So this one, you just have to look at the homework. It has got question 2, and question 3. Okay, also question 4. There are only 4 questions. Unfortunately, time it's not on my side to go through the homework question, but it will be shared with you, and then you'll be able to do the answers. And then again, of course, I was supposed to do the summary, but the summary is just to refresh your memory in terms of different types of graphs. And then, of course, for the next lesson, which is next week on the 19th, of March, from 2 o'clock until 3:30, the topic will be finance. And then this time we're going to focus on interest and banking. That is for next week. So please make sure that you tune in next week on the 19th of March from 2 o'clock until 3:30. The focus will be on the topic finance, and the section will be interest and banking. Now, boys and girls, unfortunately, time is not on our side. I have stolen few minutes, but thank you very much for watching today's lesson. I hope you have learned a lot, and then I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.